get to going, shall we? So here are some things. We're going to start talking about solutions that stick. So we are in this weird time because COVID has stopped more or less everything. It's changed fundamentally everything that we do. And that also includes all the things that we've been kind of thinking, oh yeah, I'll deal with it at some point, right? And so we're now at the point where we're thinking about starting things back up again and developing whatever the new normal is, right? And it means that we can come up with what are called fundamental solutions. Fundamental solutions. This is borrowing from a book by a guy called Peter Senge called The Fifth Discipline. You don't necessarily need to know that, but it's useful if you think, oh, actually, this is really lighting up for me. I can go and find it. Here's what we do an awful lot of the time, and this goes for children's, youth, families ministry, it goes for pastoral care stuff, or just all church life, actually life in all sorts of organizations. Any organization, you'll see this. And the first thing that we do is we try and find what's called a symptomatic solution. So this is a symptomatic solution, and I'm going to take an example like volunteers. So all of a sudden, you have a volunteer that leaves, right? And all of a sudden, panic sets in because you are running very thin on the ground in terms of volunteers. And so you end up having a crisis. And so you start scrabbling around for any old person that might already have a DBS check or that will get through a DBS check to fulfill the role. And what ends up happening is that you get a poor choice. Not only that, and we've all done it, but you say to them, you just have to be there between 7 and 9 p.m. That's all you've got to do, just be there. And the thing is, we know that is not just what you need a volunteer youth worker to do at all. You need them to be there. You need them to monitor behaviour. You need them to notice what's going on with the young people. You need them to play Uno occasionally. You might also need them to lead a craft. You might also need them, in an extremist, you might need them to stay until 1 o'clock in the morning whilst you take a young person to A&E together. There's a lot more that you're asking people to do, but you didn't explain it fully because you just needed someone to come along and do the job. That volunteer realizes that they've been given short shrift, and then they naff off, they leave. And so the cycle continues. Now, this is the worst case scenario, right? But we see these cycles go on again and again and again. It might not be this nightmare scenario, but what happens is it gets worse and worse and worse because this volunteer that's left is going away and going, well, I wouldn't recommend it. I didn't have a positive experience volunteering with those children, with those young people, with those young adults, whatever your particular thing is. And what we need instead, something much happier. What we need is a fundamental solution. Where to write it? The fundamental solution is a much more useful thing because if you can get to this, you've dealt with the problem more or less entirely. The fundamental solution is to be thinking about volunteering all the time. Can you see this, Alan? Yeah, I think you can. So you're thinking about volunteer recruitment all the time. So once a month, you're going to look through a list. And on that list, you're going to have your A players, the people that if you got them on to volunteer with Messy Church, or if you got them to volunteer with Walking Church or what have you, you'd just be like, I wouldn't even have to tell them what to do. They just know it. They're amazing. And then you'd have your B players that you think with just a little bit of training, a little bit of just on the job, here's how you play Uno, and here's what happens if, here's how to deal with that difficult young person. And let's do it together next time. They'd be really good. And then some C players who you think they're solid and they could definitely do it. Maybe they're an occasional volunteer. But you're going and you're contacting people on your list and you're having those conversations on a regular basis, once a month or so. Not only that, when you have your conversation with someone who may not necessarily say yes, you can place into their hands or email to them a super simple, handy sized document that says, here is what I'm asking of you. And you can find this on our blog, by the way. If you go to LNS&I.org.uk and go to the resources section, I think you'll find it in the admin and strategy bit. I don't know. You can hand them an A6 size document that says, hi, thanks for thinking about volunteering with the Children's and Families team at our church. Here are the things that you need to do. You need to turn up on time. Here's what you need to do if there's poor behavior. Here's what we need to do in terms of safer recruitment. Here's the person to speak to. And here's a potential commitment we'd be asking you to make. Got any questions? Have a chat with John. Here's his email address. And you're giving that to someone already. Not only that, you've got a process for a list of things that you're going to go through so you can get their DBS done and their safer recruitment stuff so they can do their application. So you've got all your paperwork dealt with. And with that, because you're having multiple conversations a month about recruitment, people are saying yes. And because they're saying yes, you're not so worried about volunteers anymore because you have enough people to do the work. And you're also saying thank you to them on a regular basis, once a year, a Sunday service or at a celebration where, I don't know, the young people or the children do something for all of the volunteers. You say to them, you're absolutely amazing. And then you're also having conversations with them to say, hey, do you want to come and do another year? Is there anything else that we can do for you? And so what you're doing here is going from this symptomatic solution where there's crisis after crisis that you're trying to head off, and you're shifting to a situation where you've dealt with the fundamental solution to the problem. You have a system, a machine that you work, and that machine gives you a predictable output of volunteers. The challenge, and this is what COVID has afforded us, is that usually you've still got to deal with these crises before you get to this fundamental solution. Because it takes a while to get enough people to start saying yes, and to change. If you're a church suffering with a poor experience of volunteering in children's, youth and families work, it takes a while to kind of work back out of that kind of yes, Richard, you absolutely can. I'll put that in. If I don't put it into the chat today, I will find the link for you and email it out via Eventbrite for everyone. Now, normally there's a delay. There's a delay. You've got to wait until this kicks in before this stops. But because COVID has stopped everything or changed the way that we do things so much, It means that we can start with a fundamental solution and deal with the problem once and for all. So when we start going back, or when we start thinking about a more face-to-face or hybrid thing, we can change what we do straight off. I want to put you into breakout rooms. I want to give you let's do 13 minutes, maybe 11 minutes of regular time, and then another 2-minute countdown. What are the symptomatic solutions that you've been searching for? It might not be volunteers, but it might be another part of your work. What are the symptomatic solutions that you had experienced or have been experiencing? And then what might be the fundamental solution for those? What's gonna absolutely solve the problem once and for all? There's two things. Actually, I suppose the simpler, more useful question is, what is the fundamental solution that you need to think about as you transition back to some form of more face-to-face or hybrid kind of ministry with children, young people and families?